The way the 12 apostles of Christ died is not always clear to religious scholars. There are some references in the New Testament, apocryphal texts, and even accounts from early Christians about what might have happened to each of them. It's true that some of these accounts differ from one another, but there is always an explanation that is more widely accepted and considered reliable. What we know is that the apostles set aside their personal lives and occupations to join Jesus during his earthly mission, and after his death, they were instructed to preach the gospel throughout the world, even if it meant facing death. During that time, persecution of those who preached the gospel was intense, and like Jesus, many of them were brutally murdered. In this video, I will show you the lives of each of them leading up to their deaths. But before we begin, I would like to ask you to subscribe to my channel. Just click on the button below the video, subscribe, and next to it, you'll see a bell icon. Click on that bell so you'll be notified by YouTube whenever I upload a new video, okay? Come walk with me every day, all right? So, after Jesus' death, the apostles continued spreading Christianity from Jerusalem to Damascus, Antioch, Asia Minor, Greece, and finally Rome. Let's explore the lives of each of them according to biblical accounts and traditions. The Apostle Peter. Peter was the oldest disciple, and it was to him that Jesus entrusted the leadership of the church and the apostles. Let's see what is written. I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. After the death of Jesus, it was Peter who led the mission to preach the gospel to all people. His missionary work continued until the end of his life, 68 years after the birth of Christ. Tradition holds that after Jesus' death, the Apostle Peter continued his missionary work for another 35 years. It is said that he was crucified in Rome, but according to tradition, he requested to be crucified upside down, as he did not consider himself worthy to die in the same manner as his Lord. Apostle Andrew. Andrew was the brother of Peter and also a fisherman. He was already a follower of John the Baptist, and when he encountered Jesus, he introduced his brother Peter to him. Andrew is mentioned at various significant moments in the Gospels and was one of the closest disciples to Jesus, along with Peter, John, and James. The apostle was present when Jesus spoke about the end times and witnessed Jesus ascending to heaven after the resurrection. Andrew played a crucial role in the expansion of the early church. Tradition suggests that Andrew faced severe torture before being crucified in Greece. He was on a mission in the province of Achaia, where he was crucified on a cross in the shape of an X. Centuries later, his remains were discovered and transported to Scotland by sea. According to legend, the ship carrying his relics sank, and to this day, there is an island named St. Andrew. John. John was the youngest disciple of Christ and was also known as the disciple whom Jesus loved. Alongside Peter and James, John was part of Jesus' inner circle of friends, witnessing miracles and revelations. He was the only apostle to accompany Christ to his crucifixion. According to tradition, John, who was still young, was thrown into boiling oil but suffered no harm. Later, by the orders of the Emperor Domitian, John was taken captive to the island of Patmos, where he received the revelation of the Apocalypse. It is believed that John died of natural causes at the age of 94 in the city of Ephesus. Philip. Philip was the third person called by Jesus to discipleship. The apostle participated in many miracles, and it was to him that Jesus posed the question of how to feed the crowd during the episode of the multiplication of loaves and fishes. Philip continued his mission in Asia, in the regions of Phrygia and Hierapolis. The story of Philip's death is unclear, and to this day, it's not precisely known how he died. There are accounts suggesting he died of natural causes, but some scholars believe he may have been hanged, stoned, or even crucified in Hierapolis. Bartholomew. There are few references in the Bible about the apostle Bartholomew. His name is mentioned only in the list of disciples, and according to some records not found in the Bible, the apostle preached from Asia Minor to India. It is said that he was skinned alive and crucified upside down in Albanopolis in Armenia. There is another version in Catholic tradition that claims he was whipped to death, and his body was thrown into the sea. Matthew. Matthew was a Jew with good financial standing as he worked as a tax collector, collecting taxes for the Roman Empire. Tax collectors were looked down upon by Jewish society, but it was while serving in this role that Jesus called him to follow. As the author of one of the Gospels, Matthew revealed many details about the ministry and life of Jesus. According to reports, the apostle traveled throughout Persia, Judea, and Ethiopia, where he is said to have been killed. The cause of his death is reported to be from a sword wound, but there are also those who believe he died of natural causes. His tomb is located in Salerno, Italy. Thomas. Despite few details in the Bible, we can perceive the personality of Thomas, an honest but pessimistic and skeptical man at certain moments. In the episode where Jesus decides to return to Judea to resurrect Lazarus, risking being stoned, Thomas then makes a comment about the decision. See what he said. Then Thomas, also known as Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." This demonstrates his sincerity, but after the death of Christ, the apostle gained prominence in biblical accounts by stating that he would only believe in the resurrection of Jesus if he could touch his wounds. Thomas earnestly wanted to see Jesus, but his eagerness turned into disbelief. A week after Jesus resurrected, he appeared to Thomas, showed him his wounds, and the disciple then believed. There are accounts suggesting that Thomas died from being pierced by arrows while he was praying. His death is said to have been ordered by the king of Mylapore in the Indian city of Madras in the year 53 after Christ. Simon. Little is known about Simon beyond his origin. He was a native of Cana in Galilee. There are no details about his death, but according to Catholic tradition, the apostle was sawn in half with a saw. In some historical writings, the apostle is said to have been martyred at the age of 120 during the reign of Emperor Trajan. Other versions claim that he was crucified or burned alive in a fire in Armenia. James, son of Zebedee. James was the brother of the apostle John, and the two were nicknamed by Jesus as the Sons of Thunder. He worked on his father's boat in partnership with Peter and Andrew, and it was on the shores of the Sea of Galilee that they became disciples of Christ. James was also part of the inner circle of disciples closest to Jesus. He was present at the resurrection of Jairus' daughter, the Transfiguration, and in the Garden of Gethsemane. James was the first apostle to be martyred, and the only one with a biblical account of the event. He was beheaded at the command of Herod around the year 44 AD, the same time Peter was imprisoned, as mentioned in Acts chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. James, son of Alphaeus. Unlike James, the son of Zebedee, there are very few details about the journey of James, the son of Alphaeus. There are 4 references to the apostle in the Bible, and you can read the verses I'll provide on the screen. There are 2 accounts of the causes of James's death. The first suggests that he was crucified, similar to Jesus, in Egypt in the year 62 AD. The apostle became a missionary in Palestine, and the country where he was killed. Another hypothesis, suggested by the historian Flavius Josephus, is that James was stoned to death at the command of Ananias, a high priest who wanted James to denounce some Christians. Judas Thaddeus. After the death of Christ, Judas wrote one of the letters present in the New Testament. Unlike the traitor Judas, he responded faithfully to his calling and had the courage to give his life for the love of Christ and the sake of the gospel. According to tradition, the apostle evangelized in Judea, Samaria, Idumea, Syria, Mesopotamia, and ancient Libya. He is believed to have been martyred in the year 70 AD, beaten with a spear, axe, and club. Judas Iscariot. Judas Iscariot was the disciple who betrayed Jesus. Interestingly, he is the disciple with the highest number of mentions in the Gospels after Simon Peter. Another detail is that his name was always mentioned last among the disciples. Judas was in charge of the money management, and despite this responsibility and walking with Jesus, he would steal from the funds collected. As remorse for delivering Jesus to the priests in exchange for 30 pieces of silver, Judas tried to return the money, but he was rejected. Overwhelmed by guilt, he threw the money into the temple and went out to hang himself. So, these are the accounts of how the apostles lived and how they died. You might be wondering, but Pastor, are there still apostles today, like in ancient times? The truth is that the title of apostle was directly linked to those who saw Jesus when he was on earth. However, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 11, also says that God appoints some to be apostles. Because of this, some denominations today consecrate individuals who believe they have this ministerial gift. The fact is that every Christian has a call from Jesus to proclaim the gospel to those around them, and those who obey this command follow in the footsteps of the apostles who gave their all so that many would know Jesus. Amen? If you enjoyed this message, share it with your friends and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next video. May God bless you.